And check the stream. See if it's all good. And it is. Okay, cool. Welcome back to my channel. I have another random reaction for you. From King's Horses again. If you're not subscribed to King's Horses, go ahead and do that and leave a comment saying that I sent you. You don't have to, I just want to mess with them. See how many times I can get that comment on one of his videos. Maybe this one, I don't know. Alright, let's start this bitch.
That's
what's funny to me, Kirsch, is that
actually a lot of Judaism is.
Let's take this argument where it's meant to lead. So your argument effectively boils down to, Kirsch, is that I don't understand the naturalistic phenomenon that would hold on, Kirsch. You don't understand the naturalistic processes or phenomenon that would be required to facilitate abiogenesis or biological evolution. So the only possible explanation other than that is magic. That it was literally popped into existence out of a vacuum, out of literally nothing, by a disembodied genie using an incantation spell.
Again, you still haven't answered my question.
I did answer your question.
He literally just did.
Kirsch, I don't think that you.
Your mic is so loud.
Let me try and offer you some advice here, Kirsch. Perhaps you should start operating under the assumption, Kirsch, that all of your contentions with evolution are going to be predicated upon your own biological illiteracy, which has been the case 100%.
I'm thinking about the thing that need to start live. As I think it starts with an A. I'm sure I'll remember it, or it'll be said here.
Of the time thus far, and not some piece of brilliance mysteriously overlooked by everyone in academia for the past 2 centuries.
Exactly.
Because there's only 2 ways plants can grow.
I'm gonna have to applaud that. I'm sorry, that was too good.
And the other one, you do agree, but you haven't explained how it got throughout the whole earth. Because there's still no bees now.
Well, it wouldn't be one plant that grew. It would be a multiplicity of plants, many plants. And they would have been very primitive. So those seeds would have probably floated on the air, like some do now.
And bees is
Well,
one of the big...
frankly, Kirsch, grass isn't
anyway.
throughout the whole Earth. There are plenty of places in the world where there is no grass, right? Like Antarctica, for instance.
I'm not talking about just grass. We're talking all plant life.
Yeah, vegetation, plant life. Like that. Yeah, that's
the same way.
And there's actually sex when it comes to plants. It's called... it's actually what it is. Sex.
It spreads through a variety of different successful environmental conditions that allows those things to grow and reproduce. You know, there are like certain areas of the world where that's not the case, and they can't reproduce in those areas. You know, you're not going to see like pine trees in the desert, for instance, because the conditions don't allow it. It's going to be entirely dependent upon the present environmental conditions. I mean, the environmental conditions of the planet millions and millions of years ago were radically different. You know, grass is an incredibly recent evolutionary spawn within that. I'm not particularly familiar with plant evolution, but
how they came to be.
He's literally
well, see, this is the problem, Kirsch. This is the bait and switch that I dislike. You're asking me where grass came from, but you're using that as a veil to ask me where life came from.
Yes, that's exactly what he's doing. I love this about Xerxes. He catches that shit.
Because
I'm not
the
attempting to answer the question of abiogenesis here, Kirsch. I'm just
Hang on.
explaining to you
Hang on.
where grass came from. That's all I'm trying to do here.
Hang on, because you can only tell me how something can crawl out of this goop, but you can't tell me how plants came out of this goop because they can't crawl. They can't spread.
What? Nothing crawled.
Oh my
These
God.
things were not
What are you
motile.
talking about?
Single-celled
now grass crawls.
organisms were not crawling
Now grass
around. That's a
crawling.
complete
Holy
misunderstanding of the
fucking shit.
subject.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I'm
so
going to ask
like,
you something now.
hold on.
I'm gonna
So
ask you-
plants,
Go on.
Kirsch, do you understand that like plants reproduce using seeds, and seeds are carried by the wind, and that's how you get planted elsewhere?
But the first ones, I'm talking about the first ones. How did the first
The
ones
first
make?
one.
Yeah, so this is not a linear
Technology.
path of succession. Evolution operates in populations, not in individuals. So there would never be a first one.
Oh, you
there
tell
would
me
be,
all of a sudden
there would
you
be
know,
different
like a big
populations of
berry-
organisms that develop different
there are seeds
characteristics.
that were planted in the earth? Is that what
No,
you're trying to tell me?
no, that's not what I'm
No.
saying, Kirsch. I'm
No,
saying
this-
that biological organisms, the predecessors to what to the vegetation that we currently consider plants and trees and whatnot, those things would have had they would have developed and reproduced differently.
Has this guy gone through school? I mean, regular schooling tells you this. I mean, the plants, how plants grow, how plants can replant themselves. You learn that in school. I mean, not even at the middle school level you can learn this.
And over time they would have evolved the seed mechanism, but that that would have come much later. So like the modern plants and vegetables and stuff like that and trees that we see did not exist many millions of years ago. They would have been completely basal forms that had entirely different reproductive systems. It was only when the environment changed in such a way to facilitate and allow for those different reproductive systems that the animals which evolved those mutations, or the plants which evolved those mutations, were selected through natural constraints and pressures to dominate the planet as opposed to what had come previously. So
My question is,
the basal plants would have
hang on.
died off and gone extinct, whereas the new ones that are more suited to their present environment would have thrived.
so my question to you: do you really believe that shit?
Yes.
I observe it as a fact because
That's- That is such a stupid response. Wow. I'm sorry, that response is just fucking brain dead. I'm not gonna comment on whether this person is smart or not. But that response was, dude, brain dead stupid.
we
Wow.
literally in agriculture use these methods for selectively breeding different fruits and vegetables to eat.
That was
Can I
a
ask a question?
so stupid question.
So Kirish, so if you don't believe in evolution, if you believe that all of that is false, then how did plants get here? If you can't believe in that, how did
Magic.
plants get here?
Through
Superman.
God,
Okay, what
Magic.
did God do to put plants here?
he said, "Let there be."
He clicked his
So
hands.
just
Yeah,
by
he
saying
just spoke
something,
it
it just
into
magically
existence, yeah.
appeared?
This is
Yeah,
magic.
he's-
Kirsch, what's interesting though is that according to your Bible,
Well,
plants
I'm
were created before the sun was.
Yeah, which is
Wait,
fucking
here's-
impossible.
Kirish, what is the shape of the
Before the
Earth?
sun was completed.
Oh. Okay, that is a rabbit hole. No matter who you ask it to, that's. Wow. That's a huge rabbit hole. I don't. Wow. Okay, let's see how this goes.
Kirish, what is the shape of the Earth?
Shape of the Earth is circular, global.
Max,
So-
easy on the machine gun questioning.
In
It's
a
kinda
blade
keep-
spheroid.
I'm not a flat Earth. I'm not a flat Earth.
That's
I have a
that's fine.
controversial
But
question. Can I ask my Jewish friends?
I
It's
suppose
not
go
really
ahead.
what the shape of the Earth is whether or not I believe in a in the what do you call it?
Heliocentric model.
Yeah, I believe.
So
it's
you're
the
so you are a creationalist, right?
Your hair is kind of green.
I mean, Kirsch, if you're really interested, I can send you scientific journals that explain the evolution of certain plants.
By the way, hybridization is different from genetics.
But I think that this needs to be said before we go any further. Is Kirsch, what you're really asking?
Plants did the same things human plants multiplied. In some cases, the same way. It's sex. It's called sex because that's pretty much what it is. I mean, whatever. Read a book.
Here is how did life initially emerge? You're not asking about the divergence of species, right? That's what evolution is. Evolution is the divergence of species. Okay, abiogenesis is the emergence of life, and that is a scientific field that's still in its infancy.
That's what you changed. That's what, because they can't explain everything. But that's what they.
Well, I mean, you go back a couple thousand years, we couldn't explain where the sun went at night. That didn't stop us from inquiring and developing theorems on how to test that.
When I grew up, evolution. That's ancient, baby.
Would you say that the abortion is present in the Old Testament? The abortion law, if I may say so, it is present in the Old Testament.
Numbers chapter 5, verse 11 through 14, wherein a woman is unfaithful. And if for whatever reason the Sanhedrin determines that she was in fact unfaithful and she conceived as a consequence of that infidelity, then they give her like this poisonous concoction which causes her womb to rot and forces a miscarriage, and she's barren for the rest of her life.
Exactly. How do you counter
but
that?
that's a red herring. Right now, like Kirsch has pivoted the conversation from like the moral value of the Bible to these scientific, fields of inquiry, which again, I'm not a biologist, so I'm not even really qualified to talk on this. I can find a biologist, somebody who's very well versed in the subject, to talk to you about it, or I could just link you to the information which I've read myself that explain these things. But Kirsch, I don't think that you're asking.
Yeah, I have a suggestion. You should start doing that. After the fact. I mean, that would be useful. I would actually like to read some of that stuff. I need to do more research on how plants grow and the different genres. It's weird, but there's a lot of stuff that are behind paywalls though, so sometimes it's hard to get. But if you can post a paper without a paywall, you should.
The question of speciatic diversion, or how different species of plants developed from other species of plants, because that's what evolution is, change over time. The initiation of biological organisms on this planet is a completely different field.
They're using what is today. This is what God created today. Species not to be able to breed amongst other species.
What do you mean today?
Okay. Well, Kirsch, we can prove that manifestly incorrect, okay?
Because when I grew up, what's his name? Edward? When I grew up, evolution was about the whole thing. About the creation of the universe.
That's not true. Probably the straw man that you heard of evolution from your creationist teachers that didn't want to teach you what it actually said might have been that. But at no point in the last 170 years of academia has anybody thought that evolution was the explanation for how life started. It couldn't possibly be it. Evolution is the explanation for why there is a diversity in species, and we know for a fact that the species that currently alive today have not always been alive, and that there have been entire worlds of life of other species that existed way before humans ever walked the earth, particularly, and that the animals that are alive today descended from those common ancestors.
Okay, so Kirsch, I have a question. So do you believe that climate change is real? That there is a global climate change situation?
Max, I would like to try and focus in on one subject before we pivot to the next.
It goes back to plants and evolution.
Max, let them hash through the idea.
Well, it depends on what you call climate change. You think climate change through
wind?
Yeah, I didn't want this can of worms to be open, but Kirsch, if I were able to provide you in a concrete, observable example of species emerging from other species, how would you go about explaining that?
God created a different species.
God did it. Yeah, God did it.
So we artificially breed a new species of animal, and that's God creating it.
Yep.
This is called
Okay.
hybridization.
Well, at that point, then there's
What are you
obviously
talking
you're
about?
not willing to learn.
Hang on. No. Repeat the question? Because you said, how do I explain?
Ligo.
Do you think that a Chihuahua
One example is the Ligo. We bred a lion and a tiger and made a Ligo.
and a wolf are the same kind?
Yes.
All right, so they're capable of fertile interbreeding.
Through 100 years of breeding a dog, through natural selection, we
Try about 3,400 years of breeding dogs.
No.
Is that micro evolution versus macro evolution?
Eduardo.
Uh-oh, he's trying to fit it into the age of the aughts kind of thing.
But hold on. So do you think, Kirsch, that Chihuahuas and wolves are capable of interbreeding?
No.
But you just said that the definition of a kind is two animals capable of interbreeding.
What I'm saying is that when you go out so thin, there may not be a possibility of that trait that you're trying to separate from the wolf. That because the Chihuahua is so small, it's not gonna naturally be able to do that. They're
Okay.
too small. One's too small, one's too big.
It's too small. So what about a male Chihuahua and a female wolf?
Maybe, I'm not quite sure.
Well, I can tell you definitively the answer is no, they can't. As a matter of fact, there are many domestic dog breeds that can't interbreed with each other.
They can.
But here's something a little bit more interesting. Wolves are not the only canines out there. You also have African wild dogs, dingoes, jackals, coyotes, and some of these are capable of interbreeding with each other, but some of them are not. How do you explain that?
Because they're after their kind.
What is a kind?
A kind is something that's breedable within their own species.
Okay, so Chihuahuas and wolves they're not the same kind.
That
Mojavian rabbits and Alaskan rabbits aren't the same kind because they can't interbreed.
there's coyote dogs. I don't know what all the different species are.
Yeah, we're aware that you don't know. That's the point. My point is to get you to provide a definition of the word kind that would actually incorporate the clades that we know about today. So you believe that all dogs are related to wolves? Are wolves also related to coyotes and jackals and dingoes?
I'm not exactly sure.
Well, where does it stop? How do you identify the kind, right? Because I assume based on this kind argument, you also believe in the global flood, so all these animals had to come from somewhere, right? Obviously, Noah couldn't fit the 6.7 million different land species on the ark.
He only brought the kinds.
Of course he did.
And you can't identify where they end and where they begin. That's the point. Like I can draw a genetic and hold on, Kirsch, I can draw a genetic and
each kind.
Yeah, but the problem is you don't know what a kind is, right? That's why I'm using a very easily understandable, easily recognizable species of animal to try and create this distinction. We could go with cats as well, right? I mean, you have lynxes, jaguars, leopards, panthers, cougars, tigers, lions, cheetahs. I mean, there's a bunch of different kinds of cats out there.
I'm not adverse into. I'm not whatever you call that guy that's into the species. I'm not
The feline.
Taxonomist? Yeah, most creationists are very bad at taxonomy.
Was he about to say the name Darwin? Darwinist? I don't know.
That's one of the main problems with creationism is that their taxonomy is all over the place. We can compare the genetics of different animals to determine their lineages and who they were closely related to. All right. Would you think, Kirsch, that a hyena is more closely related to dogs or cats?
Again, I don't know.
That is a good question. 'Cause it's a trick question. Let's see if he's had it.
Okay. Well, hyenas are more closely related to cats. They actually belong to the Felidae clade, which includes not just cats but also mongoose.
I was talking about the common ancestors. Okay.
And weasels and ferrets.
Yeah.
And what is your point?
And otters. Well, you say that these animals only breed after their kind, but all these animals are related to each other within close nested hierarchies, right? Cladistic taxonomy goes through all of these different relations. Seals, for instance, are related to dogs as well as bears, right? Because bears, cats, and dogs all had the same common ancestor, which I believe was called a nympharid. But like you'll notice, if you look at like a bear cub, a lot of people even still today will pick up bear cubs thinking that they're baby dogs. They're not. You'll notice like comparative anatomy when a species of animal is particularly young, it bears very close resemblance to all of the other animals within its same clade or within its same family. So bears, dogs, and cats all kind of look like each other when they're very, very young. Big cats, anyways, not like little kittens like house cats, but like a baby lion cub and a baby bear and a baby dog have very similar characteristics, and in utero their embryos are indistinguishable. So these animals genetically we can trace that they all had the same common ancestor, and we can do that primarily using endogenous retroviruses, which if you want to know what that is, I can explain it to you later. But we know that these animals are all related to each other, that they share a common ancestor. Now, you say that, God created kinds. Okay, well, let me point something out to you. All the kinds that are talked about in the Bible, like cattle, oxen, those sorts of things, those animals are also evolutionary descendants of animals prior. Yep. The fowl of the air. Not all birds are directly related to one another. No. Like ostriches are incredibly distant to parrots. They cannot interbreed at all.
Emus,
for instance, finches and parrots, crows and parrots could not interbreed. These are not the same kind. You have penguins, which are almost a completely homogeneous species. They can't interbreed with any other birds outside. But would you say that there's a bird kind, or is there a bunch of different bird kinds? And where do you know where the line is at?
Again, I am not advanced into this field. I could direct you to someone.
Well, why?
Well, what convinces you that this is the...
Why fucking question evolution if you're not advanced? Okay. Okay. Whatever, dude.
The case then.
That has paid $100 million to build a replica Ark.
Are you talking about Ken Ham?
Oh my God, Ken Ham. Oh, fuck. You can't say holding up or long enough for him to bring up. Oh my God, Ken Ham.
Ken Ham.
Okay, so you know what's funny about that, Kirsch? Hold on.
And he's hired doctors and such to do videos.
Yeah, Steve Austin and Andrew Snelling, who get paid like 6 times the amount of money per year that most research scientists make. Andrew Snelling, by the way, when he published his doctoral dissertation, he talked about radiometric dating, and he outlined exactly how it's used, how we know that it's accurate, whatnot, and so forth, to get his doctoral dissertation. Then he turned right around, joined Answers in Genesis, gets paid a 6-figure salary every year to parrot their pseudoscience, and denies all of the same dating methods that he used throughout his research period to gain his doctoral dissertation. So this person is blatantly a liar, at least on one subject, not somebody who can be trusted. Steve Austin...
Well, technically a grifter too. So, not just a liar, a grifter.
Austin also got owned by Dr. Kevin Hankey, who is an older creationist Christian geologist, who completely destroyed Steve Austin's expose on Mount St. Helens using potassium argon dating. None of this I'm sure you're aware of because you don't take this subject seriously enough. But let me point something out to you. The funny thing about that Ark that you mentioned, despite modern technology, $100 million and thousands of employees building it, they realized very quickly it could never float, so they couldn't build it on the water. And they were originally going to turn it into a zoo, but because they wanted to make it accurate to the Bible, they only gave it one window, and they realized that, again, despite modern ventilation systems and air conditioning, that if you put live animals in that, everybody would die of methane poisoning. So all the animals in that fake Ark are animatronic with a small petting zoo on the outside of the Ark. And of course, again, the taxonomy of all the animals in that Ark, which I've been to and looked through just to see how silly it was, is completely off the wall wrong. right? Their oviraptors don't have any feathers, for instance, and we know that oviraptors had feathers. Oviraptors are ancestors of the dromaeoid birds, such as emus, cassowaries, and ostriches.
You were around when raptors were around? Wow.
No, we know that they have feathers because we can see their feather divots in their bones, and they also had hollow avian bones, just like modern birds.
Can I ask a question that will?
The Royal Dell response. Funny.
Tie into this
to see
also.
the systematic classifications of life.
So Kirich. So I have a question. So let's take human-bred animals like domestic pets,
No,
like a Marl Shih Tzu, which is a combination that humans have created of a Maltese and a Shih Tzu. How does God relate to that?
How does God relate to a Shih Tzu?
How does God relate to humans interbreeding dogs, like for example a Maltese and a Shih Tzu, to create a domestically owned pet? How does God relate to that? How did God assist in that, and how did God create that?
Again, God's creation is when God creates something. When God creates something and man uses it, that's not creation. God's
the only thing that's able to create. So how are we able to create a breed between two different dogs that God quote unquote created? And if so, why has God not punished us for meddling with his creations?
This is.
You will.
Because the last time we meddled with his creations, we got very swift punishment in that flood. So when's the next flood coming?
Well, the first one never happened.
Yeah, I'm going by his storyline.
Yeah, that was interesting. Is there part 2? Okay, there's a part 2. Fuck it, let's watch it.
The Grand Canyon happened.
Oh my God!
Millions of years of erosion through the Colorado River.
Millions of years of
Okay,
erosion.
this is a very easy conversation to
Would that
have
be
because
water
okay,
receding?
let me ask you.
Wow.
Right,
This is
Kirsch,
7th grade science.
It is correct. That is literally 7th grade science.
Kirsch,
Hang on.
you believe. Hold on, I want to ask this question because I've never gotten an answer from a creationist. You believe that the entire world, the whole world, was flooded, right? The entire surface of the planet, and it only made one Grand Canyon. We only got one.
That's an excellent point.
Is that what you're saying?
Was that a yes?
There's more places that look just like the Grand Canyon. It's not the Grand Canyon.
No, the reason why it's called the Grand Canyon is because it is literally the biggest canyon in the world.
Yes.
And if there was a massive
By
flood, there would
orders
be a
of
much bigger canyon than
magnitude.
the Grand Canyon.
You could fly a 747 through the Grand Canyon 6 times in a row, back and forth, and never touch the edge.
That's massive water receding there.
Well, Kirsch, we know what happens when we have water receding. So, are you aware of the Lake Missoula flood that happened about 15,000 years ago?
Well,
Have you ever been told about that?
Hang on.
I've been to many floods. I've seen that kind of shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Hang on.
I'm an idiot.
If there was no flood, explain to me how fossils happen.
How fossils happened. Well, oh my god. Okay. Man. God. Get Ledger. I'm serious, get Ledger. I'm serious, get him. Point him to this video. Oh my god. Don't fuck up the eel. Oh my god. Yeah, fuck. How did... If there was no flood... If there was no flood, how did fossils happen? That's... Oh my god. Okay. I'm serious about the Get Rich Rhetoric thing. Get Rich Rhetoric and tell them that this guy, the name on the screen, is a candidate for Don't Fuck Up the Eel, and if he asks why, point him to this video, cause woo, he'll agree with you after he watches it.
Oh my!
Sedimentary displacement. Animals die. They're buried by new sedimentary layers. Just to be clear, Kirsch, flooding does not actually.
Hang on.
Kirsch, flooding does not facilitate fossils. If anything, it disturbs the process.
That were shot on the lands of North America, and there's no signs of anything like that happening because there's no fossils. No fossils are made naturally.
No, fossils can be made naturally.
Fossils are made naturally all the time.
Made naturally, and there has to be certain conditions that are met.
Kirsch, let me ask you a question. If the flood had happened and it actually buried all the animals at once, why Kirsch? Why are there different animals in different layers? How come there's no humans, for instance, within the Triassic strata? How come you never see like Velociraptors and Tyrannosaurus Rex and Stegosaurus, any of those things together? Yeah. And you never see humans with any of those animals.
You never see any of the layers mixed.
Jurassic. Yeah.
Well, the dinosaurs didn't all live at the same time either. Like Stegosaurus predates Tyrannosaurus Rex by a couple 10 million years.
Have you guys ever done that density test in a jar? The density test in a jar.
It's an egg. Okay. Oh my god. That is Sleeping Warrior. It's an egg in a jar and you put salt in it. Okay. That's stupid.
You have a jar and you fill it with different material. One's oil, syrup, in water. And you shook it, okay, around. You had a cover on it, and each one went.
And the oil would rise to the top, right?
Exactly. The oil would go to the top, the syrup would go to the bottom, and the water be in the middle.
That's just
cool.
About the buoyancy
Humans
are
all animals on the planet are made out of carbon.
Your own density test for the past hour, dude. Jesus.
It doesn't work the same way either.
Just to be clear, hold on. Here's the thing. Like, Kirsch, you believe like birds are all related, right? So how come we have like birds from a really long time ago, like avian dinosaurs, like pterodactyl and whatnot, that are not buried alongside modern birds?
Why are all the trees laid down, and you have certain ones that are?
They're not laid down.
Yeah, they are. Because otherwise, so why?
He's galloping. He's panicking. He switched to polished straight. Trees, I think it's polished straight. It's something like that. There's a perfectly good explanation for that also. Trees can stay standing long after they're dead. I mean, yeah.
We have trees that go through all the layers.
Hold on a second.
Okay, well, actually, Kirsch, on the topic of trees, let me introduce you to a little field of science known as dendrochronology, where we can actually date the ages of trees based on their tree rings, right? And we can tell how much rain they got in a particular season based on the thickness of those rings. So,
there's a few of them that do.
Hold on, Kirsch. There are trees. There's a bristlecone pine in California right now that is 5,400 years old. All right, that predates all of the estimates of the flood, including Ken Ham's estimate of the flood, by about 700 years. And that tree just trucked right on through the flood without ever noticing that it was underwater. Yeah, so this is a problem, Kirsch. So there's a rock formation in the Yellowstone National Park. It's called Specimen Ridge. Now, it's a very interesting rock formation because it's 27 forests, not trees, forests of trees buried on top of one another in igneous rock, which is volcanic rock. Now, we know that igneous rock takes around 200 years in perfect conditions to decay back into fertile soil. And the oldest trees in any of these layers are around 500 years, right? So effectively what happens is A forest grows up, some of the trees grow to be 500 years old. Then a volcanic eruption happens, buries all of those trees in igneous rock. Most of them are like severed through the pyroclastic cloud, so the stumps are still there, but the full body of the tree is swept away. And there's also no animal fossils, very few animal fossils in this formation, because animals are capable of running away from pyroclastic clouds, but trees unfortunately don't have that privilege, so they're stuck right where they're at.
It's funny, yeah.
Yeah, so these trees, they get buried, and then the igneous rock eventually decays back into fertile soil, and then another forest grows on top of that. All right,
For me?
and then another volcanic eruption happens, boom, and then the trees grow on top of that igneous rock once it decays back into fertile soil, and this process repeated 27 times. All right, so if you just take the minimum math of the 200 years required for the rocks to decay back into fertile soil, that's about 5,400 years, right? Just for that to happen. Then you have the 500 years needed for each of these forests to grow up to have the oldest trees in those forests being around 500 years. And that's like a mid-range. Some of them are even older. So if we just go by the average of about 500 years, that's another 13,500 years for the trees to grow. So combining those two numbers together, that rock formation is no less than 18,900 years old, which is 3 times what young Earth creationists think the entire universe is. And that's ignoring all of the overwhelming radiometric dating that puts that rock formation in the Eocene epoch, 55 million years ago.
It cannot be. It cannot be. The Bible says that it has to be 600 years.
Well, I mean, the young Earth creationist idea came from a Catholic bishop in the 16th century by the name of James Ussher.
Have you seen Mount St. Helens 30 years after?
So yeah, you're talking about Andrew. You're talking about Stephen Austin's.
So how is it 500 years and I got 30 years?
Okay, again, you're talking about Steve Austin's very deliberate, fallacious misdating of the Mount St. Helens eruption. Right? We don't use certain dating methods on different types of rocks because of the overconcentration of particular radiometric isotopes, which would throw the dating off. Right? Kirsch, would you measure?
Mount St. Helens blew when I was a kid.
I get that, Kirsch. Let me ask you a question. If you had to measure the distance between California and California and New York, Los Angeles, California, and New York City, would you use centimeters to do that?
Millimeters, I would.
I don't use centimeters. I use inches.
Okay, do you think inches would be an appropriate unit of measurement to measure the distance between Los Angeles, California, and New York City?
I use inches and feet.
How many inches do you drive an hour?
Well, hold on, Kirsch. Let me ask you: do you think that there would be a pretty large margin of error if you used inches to measure the distance between Los Angeles, California, and New York City?
I said I use inches and feet.
Okay, but would you use inches? Would that be the appropriate unit of measurement to measure the distance between Los Angeles, California, and New York City?
Why are you going with the small one? I'd use feet in that one.
You wouldn't use meters.
Feet. You wouldn't use miles or meters?
You wouldn't use miles. You wouldn't use kilometers. You would use feet.
You could use feet.
Do you think that there would be a bigger margin of error if you used feet to measure the distance between Los Angeles, California, and New York City than if you used miles?
No.
There wouldn't be a bigger margin of error. Okay, there's 5,287 feet in a mile.
Yeah.
Okay, so the margin of error in using miles, in the distance between Los Angeles, California, and New York City in miles is approximately 3,000 miles, right? Approximately. Now, in feet, there's a considerably larger margin of error there, right? Because a mile is 5,287 feet. Okay, so you can be off by a couple miles, but that would require that you're off by 10,000 feet. So the margin of error is quite a bit bigger. Would you agree, Kirsch?
No.
What? That's basic mathematics. Is 10,000? Hold on, Kirsch.
Wow.
Kirsch, is 10,000 a bigger number than?
Idiot. Wow. Okay, no, that's not Phil. But he is. Sorry, not sorry.
And 2.
Yeah, he's just so, I don't know. Are you a troll, Kirsch? Please tell me you're a fucking troll, please.
Maybe,
I just
maybe
think
not.
he's doing himself a disservice.
But Kirsch, do you agree that 10,000 is a bigger number than 2?
By math, you could take how many miles at 3,000 whatever miles and convert that to feet. So you're telling me that one way you can have 2 miles as a margin of error as opposed to doing it mathematically? Sorry, you're wrong.
Okay, Kirsch.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
2 miles is over 10,000 feet.
Because you know there's only so many feet.
Hang on. Let's dive in.
Xerxes,
dive into
can you hear
shit,
me?
please.
Can you hear me, Xerxes?
Xerxes, can you hear
I can hear you.
Yeah. So you do realize you're explaining something. You're explaining error, the concept of error, to someone who doesn't understand the concept of error.
That's why I'm asking if he understands that the number 10,000 is quite a bit bigger than 2.
Just illustrate it for him at this point, because you're getting pushback because there's anticipation of you.
Was he gonna have to show a screen? You wanna bring out the construction people for this guy? Fuck.
You unraveling something, right? So you're just getting pushed back along the way. It's like pulling teeth. If he doesn't understand that you're going to have greater margin of error, if you're going to make an estimation of X amount of feet between New York to California as opposed to miles, then he's not understanding basic math and error, right? At that point,
he thinks that the earth is flat anyway.
He didn't say that, so let's leave that alone. Let's not strawman him too. I'm going to call everyone out if they start.
Wow.
So Xerxes, if that's the direction you want to go, if you can try to, clarify that point.
Yeah. Hold seconds. Is this Monostone?
What? Yeah, down there. Yeah.
Yeah. Why she is not meditating now?
You have to ask her that.
All right, so Kirsch, basically what I'm telling you is, like, if you went like a per capita percentage, it'd be approximately the same. But when it comes to margin of error, right? If you go with 3,000 miles, okay, that's a little over 15.5 million feet. So using that unit of measurement, you could be off by 10,000 feet, but you're only off by 2 or so miles. Okay, so the comparative number is slightly smaller if you use miles than feet. Right. Similarly, with radiometric dating, there are radiometric dating methods used to date isotopes, which have different ratios depending on what we're testing them in. Right. And when it comes to volcanic rock, for instance, we do not use argon dating because volcanic rock tends to have an overconcentration of argon isotopes, which leads to skewed numbers in that dating method because we're aware of the fact there's an overconcentration. So if we're going to use argon dating for anything, it's going to be something that wouldn't have an overconcentration of that isotope. Similarly, if you're going to date or you're going to measure the distance between California and New York, you're probably going to use miles. You're not going to use inches or feet. Similarly, if you're going to date the length of, or you're going to measure the length of a pencil, you're not going to use miles to date or to measure the length of the pencil. Similarly, you wouldn't use carbon dating to date the age of, like, Triassic rock, for instance, because there's not going to be a significant ratio of carbon in those rocks because it's decayed.
That makes sense. Why does that make sense?
But Kirsch, does that make sense to you? That's the more important thing at the moment.
No, because here's why. You guys are relating dating methods to miles. Why?
Yeah, it's orders of magnitude in measurement. That's what he's trying to
okay. Kirsch, all he's saying is here are two different methods of measurement that we use in society. That's all.
Yeah, it was. They are the same in that they are methods of measurement. Okay. This is pretty much over, but I'm going to play the rest of it.
All he's saying. He's not relating. He's not relating any forms of geometric dating to miles. He's just saying here are different forms of measurement.
Is this for real?
I just don't understand.
Well, he doesn't.
What's the question?
Okay, wait. I have a question for you. Okay, so.
Okay. Damn. I would have loved for there to be a part 3. That would have been cool. If he recorded a part 3, tell him to post it. That would be cool. Alright, so. Another video down. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.